Hello, bonjour, I'm back in my own apartment, in my own country, back on my YouTube channel, trying to make some new regular videos. Today I'm going to talk about music, something relatively new compared to the 80s gothic rock I usually rant about, because someone tweeted at me that perhaps I should do music reviews. Someone who knows me from Banger TV, the heavy metal YouTube channel where I used to work. And I thought, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that. But perhaps starting with something that person may not have expected, not the new Rammstein. I'm going to talk about the teenage pop phenomenon, Billie Eilish. Confession, I didn't know who Billie was until I saw a billboard for her new album, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go?, which came out in March. I loved the album cover, reminded me of The Exorcist. I loved the title, and so I immediately went to listen to her music. And then, of course, once I did that, I saw her name absolutely everywhere because she's been super famous for years. But I'm not 14. I don't live with any 14-year-olds, so I was out of that loop. But one thing I noticed when I was reading about her was how often goth was used in describing her and her music. And yes, I had seen her looking like pastel goth meets like Hot Topic, new metal child, and my curiosity was piqued. Why? I'm not the goth police. I shouldn't care, but I do care because when mainstream media gets it wrong, I get upset and I like to call them out. But more importantly, if they're right, if Billie Eilish is a goth pop star, I want to know so that I can tell people about it, because I think that we should have those and we're quite overdue. Like, I think it's been since Amy Lee of Evanescence, and that was early 2000s, like before most of the Billie Eilish fan base was even born. So I will kind of review the record and kind of discuss whether Billie Eilish is goth or not. I really, really love this album cover, so I'm going to keep it right here, nice and close. I can stare at it, even though it's creepy, while I talk about the music on this record, the sound of this album. It's a pop record, not a goth record.
Duh.
But before I really commit to that, I want to describe what I think a goth music album is. I said this in my book, and I have maintained over the years that goth music comes from one or more of three parents: punk rock, new wave, or industrial. Obviously, things have evolved since the 80s and 90s, and new acts have different influences, especially different electronic influences, hip-hop influences, but I think almost everything you can point to as being goth music can be traced back to one of those three roots from the 1970s. Billie's record has none of those roots. I'm not surprised. She's a teenager, born in this millennium. She grew up listening to like Beatles records, probably from her parents, Justin Bieber and Avril Lavigne, maybe Green Day and Paramore when she was feeling edgy. She's described her greatest artistic influence as Tyler, the Creator, an unusual, super creative rapper, even though she is not a rapper. We'll get to that. So the key influences on here really are hip-hop and modern pop, which is not to say like bubblegum or one style of pop. This is a very sophisticated album with many different influences. You will hear piano ballads and like indie folk type things, jazzy moments, a variety of like hip hop and R&B beats and end sounds. It's a total mishmash, and yet somehow it works. What's really interesting is that there are several tracks that would also work in a goth industrial playlist. Bury a Friend, You Should See Me in a Crown. You could slide those in right after Nine Inch Nails, and they would sound amazing.
You should see me in a crowd. I'm gonna run, there's nothing to help. I wanna end me. I wanna. What do you want from me?
Please do that so that I can come to your club and dance to those songs, because they're total bangers. I really, really dig them. Even though the record has also some like quirky bits that I'm not into so much, and I don't think that you could call this a goth record musically by any stretch. If we turn to vocals, that's a little bit different. I actually think vocally this fits in the goth genre to some extent. She's got this little girl vibe going on, kind of, I wouldn't call it ethereal. It's maybe even ASMR inspired because it's creepy. Some people have compared her to Lorde or Florence. I would go out and say it's almost like a next generation PJ Harvey. Think about that. Lyrically, though, it's a no goth points from me. This is a record by a teenager for other teenager about adolescent concerns, anxiety, depression, unrequited romance, friendship drama, the loss of friends, dark topics, and she definitely uses dark language when she talks about, like, I want to end me and things like that. But to me, that's not what goth is. When I started getting into gothic rock music, for me, I learned so much about art and history and philosophy. I learned about the ruins of Pompeii from Susie and the Banshees records, Albert Camus from The Cure, German Expressionism from Bauhaus. To me, that was part of it, that this music was not just about the human, daily experience, but the human condition, and teaching more about the universe, beyond the four walls of your bedroom. That I hear zero of on this album. There might be a lot of references I'm not getting because they're contemporary. If that's so, please let me know in the comments. But to me, for that reason, lyrically, you might say this is teen goth angst, but to me it's just teen angst. There's really nothing that gothic about it. But we need to talk about the image, in particular the music videos. Those are outstanding. Like, I watch them over and over again, like so many of you, I'm sure. Mental institutions like psych wards, needles, monsters under the bed, spider coming out of her mouth, like black grossness coming out of her eyes, bruises, all of these nightmarish imagery. It's almost like mini horror movies in a way, horror short form. I read an interview, Billie said the first song she ever wrote was about zombies, inspired by The Walking Dead. I don't doubt it. I think that what she does visually with the cinematography and the choreography is the most gothic thing about her. And I love that millions of people, millions of young people, are just eating these videos up. And to me, that's the gateway drug to the dark side, is the music videos more than anything. There's also her fashion, her style. That sort of bounces into the goth realm a bit. Really spiked collars, and that kind of gives me that Hot Topic nu metal vibe, as I mentioned. But mostly I see her in really colorful, like high-end designer sweatpants and whatnot. So not goth, but hey, if I was 17 and I could wear any clothes that I wanted in the universe, I would have fun with it too. And I do enjoy seeing what she's wearing, even if like 90% of it I kind of think is hideous, to be honest with you. But she's so super creative. I'm guessing Billie will appear at a lot of award shows this season on television, and will bring her like weirdness to an even bigger, more mainstream audience. I can't wait to see what she does. I expect some outlandish theatrical production that's hopefully like super weird and dark. I love her record. I love the sound of this record for the same reason I love like Massive Attack or FKA Twigs or frankly Depeche Mode, things that are like very bass heavy and like seductive but menacing at the same time. Overall, too quirky to be goth, but my favorite album of the year. And honestly, I think she's done more to push a dark aesthetic into pop culture than anyone since Marilyn Manson. If you know me, you know I was Team Marilyn Manson. I was into what he did, and I'm into what she's doing. So if you also like pop and have an open mind, you haven't heard this record yet, check it out. I give it, well, I don't give it ratings because it's not Overkill Reviews or Banger TV, but it's very good. And I give it all the thumbs, however many thumbs you have. But wait, before you go, I do want to steal one thing from my friends at Banger TV, which is the idea of the shout out. If I'm going to review newish releases, I would like to mention even more music for you to check out if you've made it this far into my video. I'm going to try and focus on Canadian music when I do this because I'm proud of my country. I'm going to mention 4. The first one, The Old Gods of New Berlin by Johnny Hollow. They sent this to me. Has a raven on the back. And, you know, I've been a fan of this band for a long time because they sort of mix a lot of things that I like, which is electronic music, but also classical music, cello, synths, these kinds of things, multiple voices. There's a fantasy element to their music. Johnny Hollow doesn't really tour, so you've got to come to them. But they have beautiful artwork and lots of cool surprises, always with their releases. This one is no exception. I got some amazing pins that came with this. The Old Gods of New Berlin. Check it out. Also, I want to recommend the new record by Lydia Ainsworth. It's called Phantom Forest. Lydia is a Toronto-based singer-composer, classically trained, does all her own synths and all her production. Her new album is, again, electronic, but in a very organic way. It, to me, is a record about nature and the beauty of nature. There's a softness to it, which I appreciate right now. I feel we need a little bit of that at this time where we get so angry about climate change. Someone should remind us about how beautiful Mother Earth is. It's a record for dancing, barefoot, on a cliff at the edge of the sea. If that's something you can relate to, Phantom Forest by Lydia Ainsworth is out now. On the other end of the electronic music spectrum is the latest from Trust, TR/ST, and the album The Destroyer, Part 1. This is cold wave, minimal, dark, late night music. If you have a fog machine, you want to crank that up before you put on this record. Now you might remember the name Trust, but it's been a few years since he has released new music, so get back on board. You know, get caught up because this is part 1 and Destroyer Part 2 apparently is on the way. You want to be ready for that. Finally, I want to recommend the EP Dive by Milk and Bone. They are a Montreal duo that plays pop music, dreamy pop music, but it's almost like witchy. There's something very bewitching about their style of pop music. Synths, again, I'm on an electronic music tip right now for sure. This record was made with Belgian producer Alex Lustig, I think is how you say it. It's short, but it's perfect for summer. Like if you actually go outside in summer and don't combust and you want to be outside in the summer and listen to some music, Dive by Milk and Bone might be your jam. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my music suggestions. There are links in the comments so that you can go and listen to these great records and let me know if you want to do more of these things, if you want me to do more of these things, and maybe there's a Rammstein review in our future. Bye.